Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and welcome to our Urban Mobility Tech Talk. My name is Nicole Servinas. I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and of course, talk all things about the mobility industry. So this session is really meant to inspire cities, property developers, and managers across Canada to continue to innovate in the mobility industry. The session, we're going to be highlighting how technology inspires connectivity, convenience, and personalized journeys every step of the way. From the moment that you leave your home to when you go to work, you park your car, and everywhere in between. I just want to let you know that we are socially distant, of course, and double vaccinated following COVID-19 protocols. Today, we're asking that all of you continue to participate in this as well. So we want you to ask questions in the chat. We are going to get back to you as soon as we can. And we want you to submit your name and company for the chance to win an Apple Watch. So make sure you do that in the chat below, and I'll try and remind you throughout the session. Without further ado, we're going to introduce our panelists today. I'm going to start off with Adamo Donatucci. Good morning to you. Now, Adamo is a business development and strategy officer at Precise ParkLink. He has over 25 years of parking industry experience in the areas of urban mobility, strategic planning, and people management. Thanks for joining us today. And next up, we have Emmanuel Loreno, who's the Senior VP of Digital Services at Flowbird Urban Intelligence. Emmanuel joined Flowbird in 2005 after completing a PhD in Business Intelligence. He worked as a business analyst in several European countries, and in 2011 exclusively focused on the US market and North America. Now he focuses on innovation, development, and expansion of the digital solutions for US markets and Canada. Thank you so much. And of course, last but not least, we have Thano Limbrinos, who is the Senior VP of Digital Buildings, Experiences, and Innovation at Quadro Property Group. Thano has over 15 years of experience in construction and building technology space. He leverages digital transformation learnings across vertical markets to drive innovation and change in real estate. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so first things first, I'm not sure if our audience knows, but let's talk about what is urban mobility for people who don't know. Emmanuel, why don't you start things off?
Sure. So urban mobility is actually a pretty wide concept that derives from everything that is being done right now with smart cities. So to make a long story short, what is a smart city? I think we should start by explaining that. So, with this Internet of Things that we have today, which basically means that every object in the city can be connected and give us information, you tend to develop this concept where the city becomes smart in the sense that everything that happens within that environment can be kind of monitored in terms of the data that you collect on the streets from an energy standpoint management, transportation management. So urban mobility, which is that concept of how do people move within an urban environment, is a direct consequence of that smart city strategy that you're trying to understand, like how everything works. So basically, the concept of urban mobility is trying to achieve the goal of making your movement within the city as easy as possible, but at the same time, trying to combine three different constraints that are kind of hard to put together. So one is less congestion, the other one is less accidents, and the last one is everything that is tied to the environment. Because as we know, urban mobility today and everything that is on the road accounts for roughly 70% of the pollution you have within a city. So trying to focus on those elements to make your residents and the visitors' life, a little bit more sustainable and easier is definitely like a topic for the next 50 years at least, because this is going to take a long time.
And that's where we're trending to Thano over here, because that has to do with you as well.
Yeah, no, we have a huge role to play with respect to urban mobility in all of the assets that we own and manage, as the lots are really the lobby, the new lobby of the building. So we have to create and stitch together the seamless experience from the people's homes through the cities into our buildings and leverage various technologies so that we can create these unique experiences, so we can create this seamless end-to-end type of environment to differentiate our assets and contribute to the city as a whole. Whether people are arriving in their cars and their parking, or via transit, or on scooters, or on bikes, we've had to really rethink the way that we're using our lots and the way that we're using that real estate so that we can contribute not only to the community, but we can transform the way that our buildings are perceived by our clients, whether they're office buildings or the residents living in those buildings or they're visiting the buildings. We've got a responsibility really to create those experiences, like I said, to contribute to not only to contribute to the cities, but also to differentiate our own assets from our competitors. If we create a unique experience for the people coming to visit our buildings, if we create an environment that is unlike our competitors, people are more likely to park, are more likely to visit our buildings, are more likely to ride their bikes and park at our buildings, which gives us more revenue as well. So there's multiple value streams to getting this right, and it's an evolving thing, certainly.
So why now? Why is this important to talk about and invest in now more than ever?
So Nokia a few years ago, they had that motto which was connecting people. So that notion of connecting people has now evolved into connecting everything to be able, so at the end of the day, to have again better solutions to lower pollution, traffic, and everything that we talked about already. So it goes even beyond, I would say, connecting people. I'm going to give you a smart mobility example that is really interesting, is the fact that what you're going to use as a mobility device, so your bike, your scooter, your car, whatever you can think about, those devices will be learning how to communicate with each other even without you interacting with them. What I mean is that if I'm driving a car downtown Toronto, the car knows where it is, the speed, and it can be aware of everything that is around it, right? So imagine now if you expand that concept to every single device that is moving, in the streets, then you can really have a good reading of what's happening from a mobility perspective within the city. When you do that, you can identify areas in the city where there's like a very, very heavy traffic, no matter what time of the day you're going to look at. You can identify areas that will be like underused, so you don't have any problem there. But that will allow the cities to kind of adapt their policies and strategies of development based on that information.
I hate to say the C word, but COVID-19, does that have anything to do with the expedition of all of this as well?
So I would say that COVID's been nothing but an accelerator to trends that had started well before. And when you say why now, I say why not 5 years ago, why not 10 years ago? In real estate specifically, we've watched other vertical markets pass us with respect to digital transformation, whether it's finance, whether it's industrial automation, automotive, like you name the industry, and they've all done a very good job in digitally transforming the way that they run their businesses, while real estate just kind of sat back and watched everything happen. We were one of the slowest to digitize. There was a study done by McKinsey a few years ago that put us just above, in a list of 26 vertical markets, put real estate just above hunting and farming. So we were just above the hunters and the farmers, and it's gotten a little better, and things have started to move, but not nearly as quickly as we'd like to see them move. But why now? COVID's been certainly an accelerant, and we've now realized as an industry that we need to start conforming and start digitally transforming and changing the way that we do business so that we can drive on a number of different business outcomes. Whether we're trying to enhance sustainability, like Emmanuel said, whether we're trying to improve productivity or decrease costs or increase revenue, there's a number of business drivers that are directly affected by digital transformation that we can benefit from, that we should have looked at a long time ago, but thankfully we're looking at it now and we're moving very quickly.
Can you guys all give me examples of how this technology is implemented with each of your personal fields?
I think that one of the key things that we've been focused on is seamless experiences and touchless technologies. So we're implementing access control technologies that leverage mobile devices that allow people to pull up, whether they're in their car or on a bike, access the lots, access the bike silos or access the bike storage, access end of trip facilities, use that same credential to access the elevator, to go up to their suite, and use their mobile phone to control environmental conditions, or to order coffee, or to contact a friend or understand what's going on in the building. So we're looking at a number of opportunities leveraging mobile technology and really creating unique and personalized experiences for the users. So it's not unlike them being at home when they come to the office.
Adamo, I know I'm on my phone all the time when I pay for my parking, and so how do you take that to how do you take that to the next level? Like, how do you improve upon that technology to make it even more seamless, and you're saying personalized?
So just to kind of build on what Thanuwa just said, and kind of taking the notion of reopening these offices again, because we've kind of been stuck at home for 18 months. So one of the technologies, and we talk about digital, and you're talking about digitalization, is these digital permits. So previously to COVID, you would have a monthly permit and you would pay monthly to park your car Monday to Friday. You had this old access card that kind of tapped in, tapped out. Today, obviously, flex work schedules are very prominent. This is how people are coming back to work. We know that's going to change. They might be back 2 days a week, 3 days a month, we don't know. So probably the product that's required right now, and something we've been doing at Precise, are pay-as-you-go permits, which really, we were working on them before COVID, as you alluded to, Thano, but really we've accelerated. So now, while people might be indecisive when they're coming back and what kind of flexibility options, at least from a parking perspective, we can give them reassurance that there's a product that matches that comeback style, what you need for your schedule. So to me, that's probably the prominent product right now the parking industry needs to develop, is to have that option to pay as you go, to park whenever you want. Maybe you want to incentivize your tenants to park on Wednesday at a lower discounted rate because it is low occupancy. See, it opens up to a whole bunch of options out there. So to me, that is clear of what we're going to, probably what I've been presenting in webinars for the last 3 weeks is that. So your digital permits, pay-as-you-go permits, that's important right now.
And Emmanuel, from your perspective, how does this all kind of come together for you?
So I think one of the things that I'm going to take also like a parking example. You know that technology and that Internet of Things that I was talking about before kind of made like parking sexy again. Like it was, like kind of a sleeping industry. And over the last, I would say 10 years, which basically echoes what Thano was saying, it really increased like the amount of technology and innovation that was injected in this area. So, and one of the I think most important things that we're doing right now is all the guidance systems to take you like whenever you start your journey and where you want to go. Like if you're driving, where can you find a parking spot? So that one seems like an easy thing to do, right? But it's actually very, very complex. So the idea is to have, again, within the city, information sources that you can use to direct the driver. So either through your phone, through an embedded system in your car, that will tell you at the time you're going to arrive downtown Toronto in some area or in some other garage facility, this is where you can actually park your car. This is the levels of occupancy that you're going to have on that neighborhood. And so that makes it way more efficient. So one of the reasons, obviously, why you want to do that is because, so there's different statistics on this one, but let's, like from a global perspective, agree that about between 30 and 40% of the pollution that you generate today with cars is due to people driving around looking for a spot to park.
Yep.
So I know it seems like a big number, and I know there's various studies that number fluctuates a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still one of the major issues that you have when you drive. So all these technologies that kind of help you know where you're gonna go and how you're gonna just put your car in some spot and then do whatever you have to do are very, 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 very important right now. The number one, I think, preoccupation today for cities when it comes to on-street parking is really to focus on that last mile experience and the occupancy levels throughout the streets.
I think occupancy is actually one of the most critical data points that we do a terrible job in understanding across real estate, generally speaking. How do you condition a building unless you know how many people are in it? How do you know what temperature it should be? How do you know how much cooling you should pump in to satisfy the fact that there's 10 people in this room versus 50 or 100 people in this room? Adjacently, how do you adjust the way that you manage your parking unless you know how many people have come into your parking and where they're parking through the lot. What's the utilization rate of P1 through P6? And then specifically on that parking level, where are they parking? Occupancy and understanding utilization of these spaces is critical to be able to contribute to that business intelligence and into that AI, because without those data points, there's not a lot we can do.
So why do you think that we crave connectivity now more than ever? Adama, let's start with you.
Let me start this off. I was lucky enough to be part of this focus group about 8 years ago. And we were working with groups across Canada in 3 major centers. And we wanted to know why people were parking in their parking lots. So some of the options we're given were safety, amenities, lighting, and so forth and all that. What came back as the main answer from all 3 cities was a surprise to us back then, not now, back then, was the ease to get in and out of your parking lots as the number one objective, more than rates, more than safety, more than amenities. So back then it was a surprise to us, but it made sense, because back then what they were telling us is that we want ease and convenience to get in and out of your parking lot. Mind you, traditionally back then you're taking a ticket, you're paying a cashier, you're looking from some pay station, some obscure corner of the parking lot that you can never find at night. So it was much more difficult. But now today we live in this world where your smartphone, you can buy groceries to your house, you can have food delivered to your office, pretty much anything. That instantaneous capabilities. That's where we want our parking industry to be, and that's really where we started evolving. So as technology starts coming through, you're implementing QR codes, so you can get your smartphone to get in and out of the parking lot. You can pre-register your parking, so you can prepay for your parking in advance of that. So to us, that's where that sort of mobility hub, the whole fact of being connective and that whole part of being instantly having that capabilities to complement what you're doing outside of parking makes sense on the technology side as well. And as a parking industry, really our focus is to support our clients in that objective as well, because it's just not solely parking. It's how you navigate the ecosystem of the buildings, or city street parking, on-street parking as well. So that's where our focus is really to complement and support not just initiatives in parking, but what happens outside of parking as well.
Do you think that it's now people who are also, technology is setting the expectation, but so are people, because we're so advanced now?
Yeah, connectivity is a utility at this point. It's no different than water and electricity. It's required to do everything that you need to do. So the infrastructure that's deployed to support connectivity in our buildings is critical, because we've experienced what it's like to have everything available at our fingertips. So now that level of connectivity, but now the connectivity of systems within a building itself is critical to creating those experiences and to creating those efficiencies and supporting the business models to deploy the infrastructure in the first place. We're not just talking about parking, we're talking about people arriving to the building and having this experience start where then they go onto the elevator and the elevator knows that they're coming, and you can go up to a certain floor, which also connects to your environmental system so that the lighting and temperature in your office is adjusted. And we've been talking about that for a very long time, but only now are we really starting to do it. And a lot of it starts with arrival, and all of it's underpinned by connectivity and technology.
How do you kind of manage getting young people on board, getting an older demographic on board, or maybe isn't familiar, or do you know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of navigate that balance?
As a developer, as somebody who's operating these assets and these buildings and these parking lots and these pieces of real estate, we have to do our best to consider everybody, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So when we're designing these solutions, we try to accommodate to the best of our abilities, but I feel that in the next several years, I don't want to say more immediate than not, we'll start to err to the side of the more technologically advanced. The pulling the tickets, those days are pretty well over. Mm-hmm. They should be, at least.
Just to add on to that, look, my mom still goes to the bank with her passport to get it updated. So you're never going to convert her to a mobility app. That's never going to happen. But and just to add on to that, I think as a parking industry, we're kind of in this transitional phase. Like 2 years ago, hardware. So when we're talking about parking equipment, hardware was the solution. Mm-hmm. You had gates, you had pay-on-foots that were kind of situated in a lobby. Pay-on-foots where you would take a ticket from the entry, go into pay-on-foot, pay with your credit card, use that ticket to exit. Some of the challenges now, I think for me, again, from a commercial standpoint, is now you're going back to the building owner and saying, by the way, that money you invested 2 years ago, now we need you to invest in scanners, Bluetooth readers, and so upgrade software. So they necessarily don't see it as old technology, but it's not as new as what's available today, especially for the younger generation. So to me, it's managing those expectations, that transitional stage from going from hardware to software. There is a bit of that transitional stage, but as every year progresses, you have that generation that's going to quickly adapt to it. So if you're under 30, we just give you a nap, you're going to acknowledge it right away. My age, maybe not as much.
There's three real challenges in the implementation of this technology in our real estate assets, in our buildings, through our parking lots, through our facilities. The one is breaking status quo. We've done a terrible job as an industry to digitally transform, and we are now starting to pick up steam. However, there is an old guard. Everybody, what I say in real estate, everybody wants to be first to be second. Nobody wants to take that first leap. And so breaking the status quo is one of the biggest challenges. But once it's done and there's precedent, it starts to roll. The other is creating those business cases. Like Adamo said, it's difficult to convince somebody who just spent a significant amount of money at some period in time to go back to their asset management group and say, actually, that's technologies. So the usable life of that technology that you accrued for is not necessarily appropriate anymore, and now we need to spend a bunch more money. So we need to do a better job in creating these business cases to convince the investment folks and the asset managers that it's the right thing to do, because it is inherently the right thing to do. And the last is physical limitations. Our buildings are 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s built. And so the requirements of today, whether it's the emergence of autonomous vehicles or things like drone delivery, weren't considered in the 70s when a lot of these buildings were built. So it's about understanding the design elements and what we need to work around to be able to enable these technologies.
I think it's all about options, because you need to give options not only to, as we were saying before, every kind of generation that is out there, but also because regardless of all the technology that you push out there, at the end of the day, there's also what is just convenient and fast for me to do. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with my age group or am I into technology or not. Sometimes I just want to be able to do something real quick and leave. In that space, it's interesting to notice, and we've seen that in many cities, that I would say, old-fashioned base stations and equipment and everything are still very popular with any kind of age group. What I mean is that, for example, we have cities where you introduce that mobility app smart thing that I was talking about before. And then you see it picking up at the beginning, and after 1 to 3 years, unless there's this huge push for the city that removes equipment or whatever, the usage kind of plateaus at some point. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what you do, you can market it, you can advertise it, it just plateaus. And it doesn't plateau at 90%. It's 25. City of New York is a good example. City of New York has a parking app out there for 5 years-ish, 25%, and it never went above that. So it means 3 out of 4 people grab a 25-cent coin and put it on a meter, right. And just don't use it. So obviously there's no question digitalization will happen, and it's the natural evolution of our industry and space. But it's going to take, again, a little bit of time, just because some of these things are still very convenient to do just using, I would say, traditional tools that you have around you, and you don't necessarily need an app for everything. So we need to be kind of selective and pick what makes sense for the people in terms of service that you can really bring to them, and that will be oh yeah, this really helps me on my everyday life, and not just push technology to them just for the sake of pushing innovation, because you're going to fail if you do that. It needs to make sense for everyone.
I was fortunate to be part of this sort of mobility expedition a few years back where I got to visit a couple of European cities, and one of them was Madrid. And I asked the city official there, because they had some technology there, they had their pay stations on the street. And I asked him, do you envision 5-10 years from now completely no hardware and software? And he goes, no, there definitely is going to be an adoption of digitalization, but those hardwares, what we see is an adaptation to that. So instead of just paying for parking, now maybe you can buy theater tickets, or you can find alternative ways that you encompass on that station itself. So it kind of hit me back then that maybe we're all thinking about complete digitalization, but here are people saying, man, maybe you adapt some of the old technology to give you some more pathway.
City of Chicago is another good example there, where they picked an area of the city and they removed every old pay station equipment that they had, and they tried to go all digital. After 1 year, they had to step back and put the equipment back because people were complaining. So they have to put back the old equipment. And to your point, Adamo, also 10 years ago, when I was like a little bit younger in the industry, I heard a lot of people saying kind of the opposite, saying, oh yeah, 10 years from now, everything will be digital, cars will be driving, and flying all over, whatever. And the reality is very different. So the adoption of these technologies is typically way slower than what people sometimes anticipate. You need to be ready, and you need to have, like us as technology providers, we need to work on them way ahead and to work conjointly with developers, cities, and everything, so they can plan ahead. But it's kind of a medium to long-term type of strategy. It's not something that happens overnight. It's going to take some time for people to transition from the world they have today to a full digitalization.
I don't think that we're necessarily going to ever remove physical infrastructure, but I think that infrastructure itself will be digitized. So people want multiple channels to deal with receiving services. So, that example that you gave of Chicago removing all the pay stations, they probably would have been better off digitizing those pay stations and offering mobile applications as an alternative to that service, or as a complement to that service. We're doing it in our centers, our retail centers, and our office buildings. The old slide the letters in and spell the company name and then put the floor that they're on are gone, and they've been replaced with digital kiosks. Those digital kiosks give wayfinding information and directory information, but to your point, Adamo, also give the ability to understand what the traffic is in the area, or what the weather forecast looks like, or local news, so they can receive other bits of information and other services from that. Those are seamlessly integrated into mobile applications so that the user can decide which way they'd like to interact today. So I think we need to give users optionality, but I think it's all underpinned by technology. It really has to be, and that's where everything's going.
Thano, you're saying that people are still wanting options, and technology being still a part of it and one of them. But what is the business value for you to invest in that?
I think that we talked about not doing technology for technology's sake, and certainly that's not the way that we approach things either. We spent a lot of time as we were building our digital strategy, spending time with our stakeholders across multiple business units within the company, whether it was leasing, construction, property management, operations management, HR, sustainability, and talk to them about what was important to them. And from that, we derived a series of outcomes that we were looking to realize, things that really drove value, a number of business drivers around enhancing sustainability, around reducing costs, around improving the customer and the user experience, increasing productivity, lowering risk, creating more health and wellness in the environments. And these business drivers are what drive all of the decisions that we make in technology. So we're not going to select or deploy any technology, whether it's mobility or otherwise, that doesn't satisfy one or more of those drivers. And all of the use cases that we've developed have been developed to support those drivers. So one example that's adjacent to mobility, in some of our office towers, we've put sensors on the toilet paper and on the hand towels and on the soap. Well, we've changed the way that our cleaners respond to the washrooms and how they replace the toilet paper. Typically, they would have just gone on a circuit, gone up and down the building, and if a roll was sort of done, they'd toss it away. So our supply waste was in the 40-50%. So not only from a cost perspective, but from a sustainability perspective, we weren't in the best condition with consumables. We've put these sensors on, changed it to more of an on-demand type of service, and we've saved a significant amount of money. and improved our how much of the consumables are going to the landfill. So if you take that way of thinking and looking at outcomes and then identifying technologies to solve a business problem, and you look at mobility, generally speaking, in the way that we manage our lots, the opportunities are enormous, because very typically your interaction with technology stops at the gate. The gate goes up and then you wander around using your gas, driving through the lots, underground. Everyone wants to park on P1. If we can implement technologies to optimize that journey through the lot, if we can leverage those same technologies to optimize from a cost perspective how the revenue that we're making as owners of the assets, but also giving the users options from a cost perspective of maybe they want to park right by the door so they pay a little bit more. Maybe the rates fluctuate based on how busy the city is getting information of how many people are coming into the city. So we can adjust rates so that it's appropriate, like the airline industry does, like the hotel industries do, to really create business value for not only the owners and operators of the assets, but also the users. So there's a ton of different levers that you can pull with respect to urban mobility that can deliver a lot of value back to the organization and to the users. It's a matter of us mapping that out and then identifying the technologies and the partners that allow us to deliver it.
And what would be one of the drivers then for you and your business, Adamo, for parking?
It's probably cliche when I reference this when I say, we don't want to be Blockbuster when Netflix is knocking on the window and saying, hey, there's a new way of doing things. But technically, there is a new way of doing things. And to your point about what's some of the drivers from our industry, well, if you're taking a low level, we're talking about technology is helping with expenses. So now you've, for example, got QR codes where you can scan the QR code and you can get assistance from a monitoring station. So you don't need that CSR on site 24/7 or 7 days a week, because you have a way to communicate to your clients and your customers and expedite any questions and answers they might have at that point. So you're saving money from a resource standpoint there. You're talking about hardware. Yes, hardware can be adapted to digitalization. This is what we're talking about. But do you need all those gates? Do you need all those pay-on-foot stations when you can pay now? For example, we have an app called Parked In, which we're quite proud of what we developed, where you scan your ticket with a barcode. Is that a barcode or a QR code? You scan it with your smartphone and you pay through your smartphone without downloading the app. So you really don't need to go to a pay-on-foot station anymore. So you're saving money on hardware, which can be used for other resources in the parking lot, maybe Park Assist. So for us, it's really driving the expense side of things. But at the same time, technology allows us to tap on all those other technology resources. So we talked about the last mile logistics. You've got the parking facility, you've got the technology. Well, once you integrate with APIs, the different ones out there, whether it's Uber, there's a fleet of Uber cars there, they have to park somewhere. Why not park in our industry? So again, we talked about those opportunities that come when you really, look at technology and how things have changing. So to me, it's driving the expenses down and also giving you more revenue generation options to help and assist with the building operations or even on the city side as well.
And that's exactly it. On the city side, I mean, we're saying now a lot more people, maybe because of COVID, are ordering things online, or maybe they're not actually physically going to places necessarily, but there's still cars that are going around because there's deliveries that still have to be made. And like you said, places that they have to go. So what's the solution for that?
One of the big things that the cities will have to achieve in general is, so we've been talking about kind of real-time reaction to an environment. Like I want to park, I'm driving, where do I go? I want to find a scooter, where is it? That kind of stuff. But moving forward, there's another huge component to that derives from all the artificial intelligence tools, which is prediction, meaning that I'm going to do all those things, but in the future. So I know basically, you were talking about the delivery example, I know when I study history, how many delivery vehicles I'm going to have driving around in that area. How can I use that historical information to kind of adapt that space so it makes that whole process way smoother? You can also, for example, just basic things like, we want to go to a concert in some arena, but it's going to go 2 weeks from now. I can today in some cities just say that day at that time I'm going to be there, and where can I park? And literally park by the arena and pay $150, or the system can tell you, you know what, at that time the availability that you're going to have is A, B, and C. So you can park a little bit further away, you're going to pay $10. You can park very close, you're going to pay, and you can obviously improve all that ecosystem with dynamic rates based on how many people have already booked and anticipated their trip. That can have an influence on how much a garage is going to cost, for example, or on-street parking is going to cost.
We're discussing some of the challenges that we foresee now in the near future. What kind of challenges do you anticipate that are going to come maybe in 10 years' time?
I think one of the challenges is consistency across the board. So if you have a portfolio, an office portfolio across Canada, it would make more sense to look at deploying technology, not just at one specific site and then another technology where they don't integrate. You really have to look more of a national-based portfolio and how do you implement technology from one side to another, or it could be from one asset class to another. So to me, the challenge of getting that consistency is really important because I don't see it working unless you truly have that consistency right across the brand.
So it's not just about mobility, although mobility is a big part of it, but it's about connecting parking and EV charging stations and the security systems around that to the security systems within the rest of the building, to the HVAC systems, to the elevator systems, to the lighting control systems, to the energy metering systems, and it goes on and on and on. So we're diligently working to integrate all of these services and all of these technologies onto a single platform. What does that allow us to do operationally? It gives us what we've been calling a single pane of glass, what everybody really calls a single pane of glass, to understand how systems have been operating historically, but also leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning to start to predict how things are going to go within the facilities. So we need to be able to react very, very quickly within the buildings as well. And the only way we can do that is by effectively integrating all of these systems across our platforms, across regions and nationally. One of the big challenges is the parking folks have never really talked to the elevator folks or the HVAC folks before. They've all been in silos, and the supply chain has been very, very heavily siloed and segregated. And now we're asking everybody to work together in a way that they haven't before. So it's a challenge that we're facing every day. We're facing it head on, and we're really driving towards that kind of integrated, unified solution across all systems throughout our real estate portfolio.
So to your point, you know what, you just pointed out something that is really interesting and very key. Moving forward, I think, so our partners, cities or operators, developers, whoever they are, they will have to be very selective of who they work for in the industry. What I mean is that everything that we've been talking about since the beginning of our talk here is based on the fact that these projects are actually integration projects. What I mean by integration projects is that people that have the capacity of bringing different technologies together and make it work. That's a very complex thing to achieve. Not a lot of companies today are able to handle that, I would say, technology integration, and everything you do moving forward needs to have that combination of talents coming from developers, from parking, from the research side, from the even like more old-fashioned parking industry, but needs to be integrated in this whole system that we're building. So that also is a big challenge.
So just further on that, from our industry, especially from Precise, it's great to partner with building operators and owners as well, because we develop the technology like our platforms, and we know how essential it is to be part of that ecosystem. And it's important for them to recognize companies that have that technical ability, because there's so many out there. But if you start to talk about implementing technology, you don't want to keep changing technology, 2-3 years down the road. So when you partner with a specific entity, have that confidence and trust that you can both develop, instantaneously at the same time, the solutions that you're looking for in the future as well.
So this is a really kind of collaborative moment to kind of get those perspectives, and then also from the city as well. How can we expedite that, or how do we make that happen? Because it's not easy. It's not easy to get us in a room together. Never mind I'll make all those things kind of align and fit.
If we ever want to realize that utopian state of being able to drive or ride your bike or your motorcycle or your scooter, and understand at a glance everywhere in the city where you can park and where there's occupancy and spots available, and how much it'll cost, we have to start working together. But it's not so easy. So it's really about getting conversations started, and I believe it needs to start at the municipal and the government level to get pushed down, whether it's through incentives or through government funding or subsidization, to allow us to start deploying this technology so that we can connect with the city, so that we can create that unified experience. Otherwise, we're just creating it for ourselves and for our own assets, which is great for us, but it's about getting people to know about it, which is another difficulty from a marketing perspective. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's endless opportunity in this space. It's just getting people to the table to talk to each other.
You're both nodding your heads, Damo. You've experienced the same kind of thing.
Obviously, government's driving, technology roadmaps for mobility, but there's also a partnership between public and private. It's a big theme in Europe. They don't build hospitals and roadways just with government funds. There's private enterprise that comes in, and they tend to work collaborative, and they have a great model to work with. So we're fairly new here. We see this with the hospitals, especially in Ontario. We start to get to that model, but I think there's much more collaboration between governments and private enterprises to get to where we have to get to on the next level.
I think one of the interesting things is how we're transforming the way that we operate our lots. Typically, as a real estate owner-operator, we'd farm it out to a third party. We'd share in revenues and drive a ticketed system and very traditional kind of old technologies. One of the things that we're trying to do is see how we can leverage technology and digital transformation in parking to optimize the people that we already have in our facilities, whether security operators or facilities managers, to help manage that lot, to keep more revenue for ourselves as building owners and operators, partner with technology companies, real true parking technology companies, to change the way that entire business works. And we're interested as owners, operators, and developers interested in working with companies who are truly technology companies in urban mobility and in parking to help optimize our own operations and bring benefit to us as real estate owner operators. So that's one of the big shifts and changes that I see in operating parking and in urban mobility, generally speaking.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in the parking industry, when we respond to RFPs or we're encouraged to offer solutions to our clients, it used to be a man in the booth, it used to be cleaning and so forth. But now we've had to develop partnerships with these last mile logistics. So now we got partnerships with lockers and ghost kitchens and mobile car washes and a whole plethora of different avenues out there. Yes, to help increase revenue generation for our clients in the asset management class, but also because we see parking as that center of mobility hub where everything gets connected, that journey from your home to your place of work, and then maybe you're parking your car there, but you're going to be traveling to Pearson Airport. So that connectivity using technology to connect one to the other, and then adding on those additional service outside of parking is really key for us and for our clients as well. So I agree, this is a technology that we tend to go in the future with.
To get this partnership and to make this happen, then Emmanuel, what needs to happen? How do people get to know about this? Where does it start?
So I think today the most efficient way to achieve that is to leave that communication to the city itself. So these systems, let's talk about the parking management one because it's a very centric one. In order for the city to be able to communicate about those new technologies and all the solutions that are out there, one of the best ways that they can use as of today is through mobility apps. And basically every city on earth is trying to develop their own, right? So that service is way more efficient, and we have several studies around the world that kind of demonstrate that when it's driven by the city itself. People will be like, okay, I have on my phone this all-in-one information platform where I can see where I can park, public transportation options, how I can commute from A to B using, the network of transportation that I have available. And so that is a very efficient way to get people to adopt these new technologies. So the cities have a very big role to play. But again, those topics take some time, so it's going to be a big topic that they're going to be working on for the next, 5 to 10 years we're going to see that trend emerging.
Okay, so now you presented all of these amazing challenges, and now I'm challenging you to let us know, or what are the first steps? What are some solutions and takeaways that people can implement right away to take that next step to urban mobility?
I would say that the first thing you need to do as an owner-operator, if you own real estate assets, if you manage parking lots, if you manage bike facilities, you have to step away from it for a second and talk about what are our key goals and what are the outcomes that we're looking to realize with the space. How are we looking to leverage this space to reposition our asset, or to add value to our asset, or to add value to our users, and talk to the people within the organization that are stakeholders within that space and that are responsible for using that space to deliver value. And then what are the use cases that we're looking for?
I think I'm going to say a little bit more of the same. This whole thing is like a giant Lego brick game. And I think that's what you want to do. You'll have like 1,000 bricks in front of you. You don't want to build like this whole thing in a hurry. You want to adopt like a baby step type of strategy by taking a little bit of distance and look at what you have in front of you and say, okay, what are the most urgent problems that I need to address? Pollution, congestion, a mix of both, and working on a strategy where you take baby steps to solve all those problems one at a time. Can be, again, understanding where you have the most pollution issues within your city and what you can do to solve that. Can be a situation where you have a lot of delivery vehicles driving around all the time. They don't have any space to park. How do I address that? And many other things of that nature. So I think the biggest mistake that you can do is trying to address all those things at the same time. And the really smart approach is to work with like partners in the industry that have been working on these scenarios for a long time.
I think from a technology provider, we truly need to look at our technology roadmap, and we have frank discussions with our clients and say, where is your technology roadmap? How does it correlate between the two? Are you having discussions with your own software provider? And if not, how do we help out with having those discussions? And I completely agree with you, Thano, where these quick wins are essential. Like, you don't have to wait for that 100% solidified solution at the end, because you miss your opportunity, especially coming out of COVID. So if you can implement a touchless solution that maybe not be the long-term strategy overall, but do it now while you're focusing on long-term, I think that's essential to kind of get the momentum going to begin with as well.
So going along with that, what are some technologies that people should maybe look into or have already had and maybe haven't gone to it yet because they think it's going to be phased out? What should people know or invest in?
I think that frictionless access is critical, and stitching access together across buildings is extremely important.
To me, absolutely, frictionless parking. Using your smartphone as your mobile permit app, as your monthly permit app, it's essential because it really does give you the consistency across the brand, across the board of portfolio as well. And also with technology, it comes to customer service. So remember, I talked about not having CSRs on site, but having the ability through technology to enlist a monitoring station through your smartphone to answer your questions. I think it's essential as part of that correlation between customer service and technology and going forward on frictionless services.
So on my end, I think I'm going to go a little bit to the dreamland scenario, which is using technologies, again, like business intelligence is one of them, which is just a subset of understanding how you can manage your data to extract knowledge. Artificial intelligence that you can use today, there's a lot of tools available to use.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us here today. And thank you so much for joining us as well. Don't forget to enter your name and your company into the chat, because you have the chance to win an Apple Watch, and Precise ParkLink LinkedIn will reveal the winner in the next little bit. Thank you so much again. My name is Nicole Cervinas, and have a great day, everyone.